Hi all. Today I will show you how you can securely capture the black queen in the queen's gambit. In this case your opponent will make the strongest moves and you will make weaker moves. But at the same time you are guaranteed to lure your opponent into a trap and he will eventually lose the black queen. At the same time I want to note that this trap can be safely used against a strong opponent. Now you will understand what I mean. And so we play for white. We make the first move with the queen's pawn on d4. Your opponent responds with the queen's pawn on d5. We play the queen's gambit. We put the pawn on c4. You know, if let's say the queen takes it on a4, the pawn is won back by the queen. But very often the black bishop comes to f5 here. What do we do next? We put our knight on c3. Your opponent in theory puts the king's pawn on us e6. Firstly, he defended the pawn on d5 with one more force, plus here the main idea opens up a bishop that will reach b4, which will connect your knight to the king. Therefore after this move boldly put the pawn on a3 so that the bishop is not allowed to go to b4. Then the black knight will definitely move to c6 and here make a very weak move. Make a mistake, just put your queen on b3. What's going on with us? You have now made a very serious mistake. The queen has removed and left the d4 pawn unprotected. Now your opponent will definitely take this pawn with his knight. And what is happening here is the black knight attacked our queen, plus the black knight attacked the c2 square with the possibility of a fork on the king and rook. Plus you cannot avoid this fork in any way since you need to take the queen away from under the blow somewhere. You cannot defend the knight point c2 with the queen either, since your opponent has two hits on this point, knight and bishop. So here you seem to have already lost the rook at any given moment. And you might even want to give up. But that is part of the trap. How do you lure your opponent? Your opponent already understands that you are playing poorly, that he will beat you. But what do you do next? You certainly do not defend in any way. Already the c2 square, it is impossible to defend it with the queen. And you just take the pawn on b7 with your queen. You will now tell me why this should be done since the rook is protected by the queen. But this is what we are doing at the moment. You captured the b7 pawn with your queen. What does your opponent do next? He of course puts the knight on c2, makes the check, attacks the rook. You retreat from check to d1. Well, as I said, we will consider the strongest moves for black for your opponent. That is what your opponent will do next. Of course he can already take the rook, but he will most likely take the pawn on c4 with a pawn. He won a pawn plus opens the queen and makes you a very unpleasant check from the black queen. Of course you are closing with an elephant here. What happens next here? But here of course the black knight takes your rook. And of course you were defeated here. Well, what do you do next? You put your queen on c6 and declare check on the black king. Your opponent cannot be covered by the queen. Since the rook will be left unprotected, he will lose the rook. Therefore the only move is to get away with the king. What do you do next? You attack the black bishop with a pawn. The bishop is again considering the strongest moves for black. Most likely he will not even retreat to g6, but you will declare a check on g4. You close. Attack again. The black bishop retreats to h5. Black is all stable, all is well. What do we do next in such a situation? We simply transfer the knight to d5 and declare check to the black king. What are the options for the black king? He can't leave anywhere, the shah is everywhere. Therefore we need to take our knight. He can take it either with a pawn or with a queen. Of course he will not take the queen since we take the queen with a pawn. Therefore your opponent of course will take our knight with his own pawn. What do we do next in such a situation? We simply transfer our bishop to b4 and check the black king. What are the options for the black king? He cannot go anywhere, he can only cover himself with his queen. This is where we caught his queen. This is the only possible move, and we take the queen with the bishop and declare check. The pawn will take our bishop and we will win back the rook we lost at the beginning of the game. Thus we won the queen. That is, black's position is very bad here and black's knight hangs plus we have a queen. Your opponent will not have a queen. I repeat, this trap can even be used against strong opponents since they are unlikely to be able to calculate such insidiousness and cunning of this trap. Since you gradually with your weak moves simply lure your opponent into such a trap. And note that here every move of your opponent was strong and every move was guaranteed. That is, you do not leave the choice to your opponent. And in the end you are guaranteed to take the black queen. I advise you to study this combination. This is a very useful trap as it will definitely come in handy in the queen's gambit. Plus, if you know such a trap, you have such a cool real chess understanding of how interesting it is to play a chess game. All, if you like this review, like it, subscribe. Be sure to learn this trap. Study each move and apply in your games. All for now. Play chess and remember, every chess master was once a beginner.